welcome to another English Sparkling with Tweedy video. I'm afraid I am repeating a wine. So few people watch this nonsense that perhaps nobody would even notice. This is Sugrue South Downs Trouble With Dreams 2019. This is a, I think, still all Sussex based English sparkling wine. Citrus and almost like botanicals on the nose. Very slightly kind of gin-like, things like juniper, etc. And then, as always, really zingy. No rough edges to this. Smart, sophisticated, elegant. More lemon, a little bit of green apple perhaps, fruit-wise. More of those kind of interesting sort of bitter, botanical type notes. It all works together really well. It's just a very, very smart sparkling wine, I think. As it happens, I had an email from Dermot earlier today. It's not really an email from Dermot. I'm on his mailing list as someone who has bought wine from him several times before, and I think he was full of beans because Tamlyn Currin, who is one of the wine experts, wine reviewers who writes for Jancis Robinson's website, has written a rave review of the wine that I'm currently drinking. So I thought it might be an interesting exercise to read through her tasting notes and compare them to what I think about the wine, and can I even understand what she's saying about each of these different points in the wine. I know a lot of people enjoy making fun of flowery tasting notes, and I get it. It does sound a bit ridiculous for what is essentially just some, in this case, fizzy fermented grape juice. But many years ago I was into whiskey before I was ever really seriously into wine, and the late great Michael Jackson, not the singer, Michael Jackson, the beer and whiskey critic, as an opening passage in one of his books on whiskey, he put to his readers the simple challenge of describe to someone who's never had Coca-Cola before, what does Coca-Cola taste like? It's incredibly hard. It does have a very distinctive flavour. It's not simply sweet, fizzy water. There is a lot more going on in the flavour of Coca-Cola than that. So that said, let's read through Tamlyn Currin's tasting notes for the wine and see if they make sense to me at all. So she writes, the smoky, marine-scented aromas like rain on windswept coastal cliffs, sounding more like a whiskey already to me, have goosebumps tingling down my neck before I've even sipped the wine. Nothing smoky to me there, but now she mentions it, that slightly sort of maritime whiff, something very, very subtly sort of seasidey. I've commented in the past that I sometimes get a hint of Japanese seaweed in Sugrue's Trouble With Dreams. I think I can get a whiff of something seasidey there. So racy it takes your breath away. I think this is a reference to the acidity. I think I said in my last tasting video that yes, all of Dermot Sugrue's wines are characteristically very pushy on the acidity, and I think that's wonderful. I love this sort of zingy style, but actually the 2019 vintage to me is a little bit more mellow in a good way. I don't think that's a bad thing than some of its predecessors. White knuckle tension, white shell minerality, white stone fruit, and long sweet pithy tannins. Okay, let's break that down. Tension can possibly refer to acidity as well. The reason I'm flailing my arms about here is because I'm being attacked by mosquitoes. It's not gesticulation. White shell minerality. So there is definitely minerality there. And I mean, I think of minerality as the difference between mineral water and tap water. I mean, it depends where you live in the world. If you're fortunate enough to live in a part of the country where you have beautiful tasting tap water, then great. But most tap water is as dull as dishwater, as the name suggests. But the difference between that and a bottle of, some pleasant tasting mineral water, there is that sort of saline, salty, minerally flavour. It does exist. Minerality is absolutely a thing. White stone fruit, we could be talking about white peaches perhaps here, maybe even running into apricots. Now, the long, sweet, pithy tannins, that's really interesting to me. I've never heard talk of tannin in the concept of white, particularly sparkling wine. So tannin, as a reminder, is that mouth-puckering feel that you get in things like black tea. I would say, it's acidic. Yes, there is a slight sort of screwing your face up because of the acidity, but that's not quite the same thing as tannin. Power in structure, salt-crusted verticality. It is a little bit saline, and that comes back to that seasidey thing we were talking about earlier, and also relates to minerality, I suppose. A whisper of honey, I suppose. There is a tiny hint of sweetness here. Very well balanced with the acidity, though. Across the endless breadth, it's a little bit lost on me, if I'm honest, breadth as opposed to depth of a wine. It feels like licking chiseled marble. I mean, wow. I'm not sure I quite get it, and I don't think this has that sensation for me, but you know, I love the playfulness of that as a tasting note. Stern, high cheekbone beauty. Again, I guess this is talking about sort of precision and acidity there, maybe, that it's very lean, it's not overly sweet. There is so much tension in the wine that it feels like it might snap in your mouth. It feels like the crack of a whip splitting a white winter sky. Again, that's the poetic license. I'd strongly urge laying this down for as long as you dare. That's not going to happen. If you drink it now, don't chill it as much as you might champagne, and if you can, allow it to open in the glass. Well, that's definitely happening here. I've just brought a you know, not very effective chiller jacket thing, so this is almost certainly well above fridge temperature by now. I've been tasting a very large number of top-notch grower champagnes recently, and by comparison, the Sugrue wines, every bit as good, are underpriced, for which read very good value. A rather glowing review, I think, even though some parts of it went over my head, and I spend quite a lot of time reading wine tasting notes.